I'm Tiff. Welcome to my decolonization and anti-racist project. I live in Wayne County, Ohio, and for this project I decided to take my step and become a volunteer for the Wayne County Board of Developmental Disabilities. So, once again, welcome to my project. Let's get started. Wait a minute. I'm Tiff, and this is Cultural Immersion. I swapped out questions 2 and 3. I swapped them with each other because I thought it made more sense for me to define what I believe anti-racism is first. And I think when I look at what anti-racism is to me, I think it's all about intentionally being aware. It's identifying and doing the work that I need to be the best possible advocate to oppose systems, organizations that are built, that are founded upon racist ideas. Coming from a background in education, I found this article incredibly helpful, and this is a passage that I thought was pretty cool. This was another one that I thought was pretty cool. I'm all in pieces. You can have your own choice. But I can hear a heavenly band full of angels, and they're coming to set me free. Specifically, I'm working with the adults with developmental disabilities, which is an absolute hoot. And I've been thinking about this idea of how I communicate that I'm anti-racist. And I think it really is very simple. It's showing up with intentionality. It's showing up with compassion and active listening for especially those adults that don't communicate the way that I do, that maybe need a machine to communicate, or their language hasn't ever really developed past maybe a second or third grade level. And so if I can show up and be an active listener with intellectual humility and really show up with intentionality and compassion, I think that's the best way for me right now in this place to show my clients that I'm anti-racist. I think this question is really interesting because there does seem to be a pretty simple answer to this, which is that decolonization is going to look different for every single social justice advocate. That's going to depend on so many of these intersectionalities that our clients have. Are they a marginalized population? Are they a privileged population? Is it an urban setting, a rural setting? All those things are going to come into account in the way that we as individual counselors advocate. But there's something in one of the articles that I want to read that I thought was very cool. Although social justice theories have a long history in counseling, they are often treated as additional theoretical perspectives rather than as foundational groundings for our counseling practice. And that is the Singh et al. 2020, by the way. And I thought that was a great way to put it. Decolonization is not an additional item. It's something that we should be, as counselors, seeing as a framework of how we're building our profession. At least that's the way that I see it. It should not be an add-on. It should be part of that base, part of that foundation, that framework that we work from in order to do the greatest good. Particularly excited about this question as I look back and think about my history as an educator and my age and starting a second career and in counseling, and how my journey will absolutely affect my work. I'm a big fan of the expression, I don't know what I don't know. And there's so much that I'm still learning about my own biases and my own privilege, that things that I didn't know about. And so now that I know about them, I have this obligation and this responsibility to advocate in the most impactful way possible. And the other thing that I think is really, really cool about this question is I think it's a two-parter. So here we go. And that's what's cool, is my work also affects my journey. So this question is kind of goes both ways. It comes full circle for me. Both are going to have an effect on both. And I really like that. The more I learn at my work, the more it's going to impact the way that my journey looks. It is important to consider the legacy of decolonization for both myself and my clients, as we are individuals. We're two different people. Now, how does that affect us? I think what that means is I'd like to think that I'm going to come from a lens of relational cultural theory. I think what this theory allows is for me to be a learner as well, to build that therapeutic relationship, or as Yalom would say, to live in the here and now and stay present with my clients while understanding, and myself, while understanding that there is a foundation of mistrust, there's a foundation of abuse. And I need to be aware. I need to constantly be aware of that. And then participate in the relationship with my client to be as positively impactful as possible. Keeping in mind that I don't know where my client comes from until I know where my client comes from. I think that's really important. So I've given this one some thought, and I've written down some things to make sure that I get this one the way I want it to. To me, decolonization means advocating and acting towards the dismantling of a system that creates marginalization in order to keep power within certain circles. As a professional, and outside of the professional world, as a human being, I think in a way, I need to continue what I'm doing, which is to continue to learn and to continue to act. I need to understand things like when to be quiet, when my white privileged voice does not need to be heard, when are opportunities for me to be a very active listener, and when are those opportunities when my voice can be heard and I can use that for a greater purpose, which is to dismantle this marginalization. I need to continue to ask questions. I need to continue to join groups. I need to continue to build a community, a network within my community of folks from all walks of life, so that I can have a place to go to ask those questions and create community, create impactful, positive community. And I think most of all, I think this idea is a way to seek for collective healing. And that's a big part of decolonization for me, is finding a way for collective healing. One thing can lead to another. It doesn't take any sacrifice. I really enjoyed this project, and what I would consider is all of the different intersectionality that went into it. I understand that decolonization and anti-racism, that is something that I want as a framework, as a foundation for the way that I work. A part of the foundation, though, not the whole thing. I think that's kind of what excites me about the intersectionality, is we're all going to do it different. We all do come from different places and have different pieces and parts. And so I figured I'm going to end this with this, a couple of things that I'm committed to. And I wrote them down. Moving forward, I must be intentional with my communication and my language, active in my listening, and humble in my learning. I will be solid in my responsibility, and I will be compassionate in a multicultural approach. Hey Sam, do you know about the Americans with Disabilities Act?
Well, let me tell you about it.
In 1990, under the George H.W. Bush administration, the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, was placed into law. The Americans with Disabilities Act has 5 different sections, which they have broken into titles. The first title is employment. The second is state and local government services. The third, public transit. The fourth, businesses that are open to the public. And the fifth being telecommunications. It's important to remember that while this is a huge step for any American with disabilities, there is still a lot more that can be done. For example, while the ADA covers public housing or housing at a university,
the Fair Housing Act actually covers more housing specifics for the disabled population than anything else.
As I mentioned it in my paper, if I could change one thing, I would change the word disability to difference. I don't think that it's a lack of ability. I think it's a difference in ability. And I think with that sort of attitudinal shift, a greater attitudinal shift, I think we could work even stronger with the marginalized population of people with disabilities. I understand why the word has to be used in especially the federal and the state and local government setting. I understand why the word has to be used in order to get those services. I just wish, a little selfishly, that the word was differences, not disability. Anyway, that's what I got. Thanks so much for being a part of my project.